Will the Committee of Supply please come to order? This section of the Committee of Supply will now resume consideration of the estimates for the Department of Education and Early Childhood Learning. Questioning for this department will proceed in a global manner. The floor is now open for questions. The member for Lac Du Bonnet.
Thank you. So where we left off last time during estimates, I know that the member for Fort Garry had asked a couple questions in regards to the FIPA request that he had, and and some of the. I'm just wondering if the minister was able to bring up some of that information that he was mentioning, and if the minister would be able to share the results today.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and I thank the committee member for the question. I think that every opportunity that we have to discuss the issue of improving attendance for students here in Manitoba is a worthwhile opportunity, worthy of a discussion. So I think that the committee can agree, I think Manitobans can agree that improving attendance in Manitoba is something that has been an issue for decades here in Manitoba, for too long certainly. And I think Manitobans should rest assured that they've elected a government who acknowledges the issue and who some of our very first acts in government were to start better supporting schools, better supporting students, and better supporting families. Because as has been noted by many experts on this issue, this is really, issues with absenteeism in Manitoba. It's not just a school issue. This is not just an issue that can be addressed via our school systems. It's not an issue that can be addressed solely by teachers and superintendents, as well-meaning as they are, and they are doing incredible work in our school system to help support students and families and improve attendance in our schools. But it's not up to schools alone. This is a societal issue. I just met with different advocates and experts in this realm just over the last few weeks. So I believe it was last week, I met with community activist and advocate Sel Burrows, who's well known in the community for the work and the advocacy that he does to improve attendance here in Manitoba. And Sel and I both agreed that this is an issue that goes beyond just our education system. This is something that we have to look at across government. It's something we are looking at across government. I'm very proud to work alongside of the Minister of Justice because we know that improving attendance in schools has long-term public safety outcomes. I'm happy to work along the side of the Minister of Families, who's doing incredible work supporting families across our communities, and some of the work they're doing. I think I spoke about it the last time we met here at this committee, but the work that the Minister of Families is doing on decolonizing our child welfare system is transformational work that's happening here in Manitoba. You know, promoting kinship care agreements. This is the kind of work done by the Minister of Families that is really going to result in generational and foundational change here in our province. I'm very happy to work alongside the Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness and the incredible work that they are doing to house our homeless relatives, but also to provide greater access to affordable, deeply affordable, and social housing here in our province. Again, a way of keeping families together, of promoting affordability here in our province. We know that there are so many issues. We've talked at this committee, and again, I welcome this conversation. It's such an important one. We've talked at this committee about how there is no one silver bullet. Our government has done many incredible things like the Universal Nutrition Program, like our small class size initiative, like the things that we have in Budget 2026, free transit for youth, free childcare for the families that need it the most. These are all ways that our government is working collaboratively and very intentionally to be able to support students, families, and our school system so that we can all work together to support kids in Manitoba, to make sure that they are in the classroom all of the time. We know that the best place for kids to be here in Manitoba is in school with the trusted adults that we know that they can rely on. And we know that education is the key to economic success, both for our individual learners, but also for our province. You know, we know that our government has a strong economic plan and a strong economic vision. And part of that vision is helping lift up Manitobans out of poverty. And we know that the best way to do that is to give them with a solid education. I'm so proud of this work. I'm really happy to talk about it some more. So thank you for the question.
The member for Lac Du Bonnet.
Thank you. And my question actually wasn't answered. And so we'll just refresh the minister's memory on the topic. So the member for Fort Garry had asked a question, sent in a FIPA request, basically asking for data on absenteeism here in this great province, and received a response on September 11th that he received a response from the department, and he quotes, so then I will quote from Hansard from our estimates on May 8th, that Manitoba Education and Early Childhood Learning does not collect chronic absentee data. And so then, end quote, so then his request was then denied. So then he requested all ministerial briefings in relation to the chronic absenteeism and data collection from October 2nd, 2023. So that's when the Canute government took power to present. And on November 10th, the ministry asked for a 15-day extension, which he agreed to. Didn't hear anything back until February 3rd, 2026, which is, you know, considerably more than the 15-day extension. And then he was able to obtain a briefing note that was to the minister dated July 26th, 2024. It was in the proper format and properly dated, and it did reveal chronic absentee numbers, which the province did clearly have in its possession. So it just seems that there's conflicting points that are being put on the record here from whoever. We're not doing any finger pointing. I'm just wondering if the briefing note from July 26, 2024 shows evidence that there is data collected from the department. If not only that briefing note can be shared with Manitobans, but also from that point on to today as well.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and respectfully to the member opposite, there were some very serious accusations related to this line of questioning that came from the member of Fort Garry. So while I do appreciate the member for Lac du Bonny trying to couch this question by saying that he's not finger pointing, he absolutely knows what he's doing, which is continuing on a line of questioning put forward by the member for Fort Garry, in which he accused the public service of fraud. He used that word several times. And so I don't take those sort of accusations lightly. What I will say is that, and as minister, and you know, the member from Lac du Bonny previously served in this role. He had the great privilege of serving as an education minister, and so he would know in that capacity as minister that it is not the minister that handles FIPA requests. So again, I have full faith and confidence in the department in the handling of that FIPA request. Again, it's not something that I have any hand in and not something I will comment on further in this question. What I will talk about, though, are the incredible investments and advancements that we're making in addressing absenteeism in this province, the investments that we're making in partnership with school divisions to better support students. What I would like to really talk about here today, what I come to work every single day to do, is to serve Manitobans. I put my name forward on the ballot because I want to leave this province in a better place than the place in which I found it, which quite frankly was quite a mess when we inherited this government in October of 2023. The government, not the province. The province is somehow resoundingly, resiliently doing well. But again, I put my name on the ballot to leave this province in a better place than in which I found it. So I'm happy to talk about some of the progress that we're making in improving attendance here in Manitoba. The data shows that it's a problem. There's no one hiding from that truth. We're being transparent with Manitobans. I come to you with my hands out. Absenteeism is a problem in this province. We inherited a problem. It's been neglected for too long, and Manitobans have both a Minister of Education, a Premier, a whole government full of teachers and educators who deeply understands this issue, deeply understands some of the root causes that are driving this issue, and are deeply committed to working together as a caucus, as a government, to address the root causes of these issues. So one of the best ways, one of the ways to support students and help them get to school and be successful in school is with some of the successful programs that we have across the province that offer peer mentorship, homework support, and other after-school type programming. These are wraparound supports that provide, again, not only mentorship, homework supports, employment readiness. These are really a way of wrapping our arms around students that are having struggles in school for a variety of reasons, and this is a great way. These are programs like Wayfinders, CETA Pathways, Peaceful Village, that we see across the city that have had great results. So our government, when we came in, you don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. We got to try new things, and we're trying lots of new things. Universal nutrition program, free transit for youth, free childcare for families that need it most. We're going to try new things in this government, but you also don't have to reinvent the whole wheel. You can build on the success of proven programs. So through our Bright Futures funding, we have expanded and increased our investments for these type of programming. So our Wayfinders program, something that's had huge success, for example, in the Seven Oaks School Division, we have 2 members of our caucus who actually were educators in that program and helped see dozens, I would argue probably hundreds of kids get to class and get their high school diploma. That's the Wayfinders program. So we have expanded our Wayfinders program here in the city to 2 new high schools this year. So that's in Elmwood High School and Sisler High School in the Winnipeg School Division. So we're taking a proven model that's helping kids get to school and graduate, and we're expanding that program to expand its reach and to serve more students. We've also, this is a really exciting expansion, in partnership with the Boys and Girls Club of Thompson, we have expanded a homework after-school mentorship program to R.D. Parker Collegiate with the help of our MLA from Thompson, Eric Redhead, sorry, apologies.
Okay. Just a friendly reminder that we need to use constituency names or ministerial titles. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, for that guidance, and my apologies. Thanks to the great work of the member, the MLA for Thompson, we've expanded an excellent program to R.D. Parker Collegiate. We've got North Star program in Brandon School Division. Much more good news to share.
The member for Lac du Bonny.
So, Honourable Chairperson, so just to be clear, I do understand that we usually raise our hands to cede the floor and to get on to additional questions, so I'll get right into it. So the minister again failed to answer the questions. She said herself that she's coming with open hands or open arms, one of the two. I'll have to check Hansard, with information. So she's talking about expanding the Wayfinders program, which again, great program. I'm not arguing that whatsoever. But the point is, to this line of questioning, and I am not here to defend the member for Fort Garry and the choice of words that he uses towards the civil service or not. I'm asking a straightforward question. Can the minister provide, now that she's aware that the member for Fort Garry's FIPA request, that there is actually information within the department, can the minister share that information today on the absenteeism in the proper format, properly dated, and that it does reveal some chronic absentee numbers within the province? Can she provide that information today?
Before recognizing the minister, I'd just like to remind all folks to the opening remarks. Questioning for this department will proceed in a global manner. So it goes directly from the critic of the opposition to the minister when the minister and the department are ready. So that is why the opposition critic was recognized, and that's how we will continue to proceed in a global manner as per the estimates formula. The minister.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Again, the data is clear. The member for Fort Garry is open to put in as many FIPA requests as he would like. There's nothing here to hide. Chronic absenteeism is an issue in Manitoba. Chronic severe absenteeism is an issue here in Manitoba. Our government is working diligently after inheriting a mess from a government that failed to take any real action, and we're getting to work on it. What I would pose to the member, we are here to talk about the supplementary estimates. I was hoping that he might be able to point us to what budget line item his question is in reference to. Thank you.
The member for Lac du Bonny.
All right. Thank you for acknowledging my timely asking of questions, Honourable Chairperson. So the line of questioning is in regards to basically talking about budgetary items that are being used towards, I'm hoping, absenteeism that is challenging many youth. And unfortunately, well over 15,000 youth are experiencing this. So I've asked the minister, can she provide the data on absenteeism? Can she provide the briefing note that was to the minister dated July 26, 2024 on absenteeism, on the chronic absentee numbers for the province? And then can she please pass along the additional information that we know now sits in the department from also July 26, 2024 to today, May 19th, 2026.
The Honourable Minister.
Again, the member, whether in conjunction with the member for Fort Garry or on his own, is if he wants to obsess about the data, he can. What the government is here to tell him and to tell Manitobans is that chronic and severe absenteeism is an issue here in Manitoba. We've inherited a mess. The data shows that much. So we can FIPA numbers all day long. The member is trying to be here to try to get into some sort of gotcha moment about data. There's nothing to hide. Is it an issue? Yeah, we have nothing to hide. Our government is transparent, and we're here to acknowledge. It's sort of like things like racism, for example, like truth and reconciliation. You know, this week's Treaty Week here in Manitoba, which is something very important in our education system. And a big part of treaty education is the truth and reconciliation movement, you might want to call it. The truth and reconciliation moment in time that we're in, thanks to the late honorable, well, many great leaders across this province, but certainly embodied in the late, great Justice Murray Sinclair, Mazina Gijek Iban. So what I would like to do is talk about how we can fix that problem. And that's what I wish the member from Lac du Bonny was here talking about today. He would like to try to be fixated. He's similar to the member for Fort Garry. He's more sort of fixated on the premier and trying to find gotcha moments and playing politics. What I would love to talk about here today is just like in Truth and Reconciliation, you have to acknowledge the truth. So we're acknowledging the truth. Absenteeism is an issue. You got to call it out. We're not scared to call it out. Let's name it. Like I said last time we were in committee, I prefer positive language. I think words matter. I like to talk about improving attendance, but we can name it. Let's call it absenteeism. Let's name it. And now we can start, once we can acknowledge the truth, which we're doing, we can start reconciling it. And that's what I would like to talk with the member, talk about with the member from Lac du Bonny today. So I asked the member from Lac du Bonny, again, we're here to talk about the supplementary estimates, about the amazing budget that we're putting forward. I would like to get into some of those details. I asked the member if he could point out what budget line in the supplementary estimates that he's talking about. And he said that he wanted to talk about what investments we're making in absenteeism. So I am so happy to talk about that, beginning with the $30 million annual universal school nutrition program. I said this last time we were in committee on the record. I say it in front of every group of Manitobans that I get in front of, that there is no government in the history of Manitoba that has made a larger investment, a larger single investment towards addressing chronic and severe absenteeism in the history of this province than our government, under the leadership of the late Nello Altomare. And not only did here in Manitoba we invest $30 million a year, not just the first year, $30 million, the second year, $30 million, this year, $30 million, and $30 million, or maybe more, forever and now on, because we made the Universal Nutrition Program a law here in Manitoba, so that no government in the future that might not see the value of feeding kids and not see the benefit of feeding kids and what that does in getting them to school, we've made that the law. So $30 million a year, this year again, on a school nutrition program. And I say this not to brag, not to take credit, but to speak to Manitobans and to speak to educators, to speak to superintendents, to speak to trustees, to speak to families and let them know, to speak to Sel Burrows, to speak to Kent Duick, to speak to the advocates in this community that come to me and tell me about meetings they had with the member opposite who failed to listen, that tell me about meetings that they had with Brian Pallister who failed to listen, that told me about meetings they had with Heather Stephenson who failed to listen. It's our government that's stepping up and listening. And we're not just listening, we're stepping up with real dollars and cents. So to the Sel Burrows out there, to the Kent Duicks, to the superintendents, to the teachers, to the amazing community organizations, to the folks at CETA Pathways, to the folks at Wayfinders, to the folks at Peaceful Village, EARCOM. You have a government that is here to work with you. We are going to finally start making progress on this issue for children in Manitoba, for families, and for the future of our economy. Thank you.
The member for Lac Du Bonny.
So Manitobans, you can see it today and you can hear it loud and clear that this Minister of Education, Early Childhood Learning cannot necessarily be trusted to have those meetings with the education partners all across this province, because then what does she do? She goes out and puts it on the public record, the results of those meetings. And so after I'm done asking the minister a question, maybe she might want to apologize to Manitobans. But so in addition to the minister heckling me from the side, she'll have her 5 minutes to answer a question. Hopefully she can answer a question. But she stated today that the data shows. Well, all I'm asking is for her to show the data to Manitobans. So I am more than on the side of the department and the staff, but now this has been brought forward to the minister's desk. She is aware that these requests have been made. She is sitting on the data. So the buck stops with her. So if she is not willing to share the data, can she put that on the record today? Because it's been asked on more than one occasion. I like to think that I've asked more than nicely today for the minister to share that data as far as what is driving some of these ideas that she is putting out there as to announcements, but not really actionable things so far. But I would like to see the data. And again, so I'd like to see the briefing note that was to the minister dated July 26, 2024. And I would like the data, which she says exists now because the data shows, that's what she said. I appreciate that the member for St. Boniface is now working as an assistant to the Minister of Education. But that being said, I'd also like the data from July 26, 2024 to today, May 19th, or the most recent data that she is sitting on and refusing to share with Manitobans.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. And the member, again, can sit here all day and focus on the data and try to get his gotcha moment. We have nothing to hide. I find it curious, too. It's quite interesting to sit in this committee with a member from Lac Du Bonny who used to be the Minister of Education. I don't recall, I'd love to maybe hear him talk about the data from the time when he was the minister. Notice how we don't hear the member talking about that. We don't hear the member referencing, if he's so obsessed with the data, you think that he might come to committee and be armed with all sorts of data about his time as minister and the great progress that his government made in addressing absenteeism. But I note that the member doesn't bring forward that sort of data here because he doesn't have that sort of data to prove that they made any sort of progress. Our government, like I said in my previous question, if there has ever been, absenteeism is a problem that is driven by many factors, many complicated factors, some factors of which we're still trying to understand. For example, the COVID-19 pandemic. That's something that certainly in a generation or in a few generations was unprecedented. It's unprecedented in my lifetime, certainly, and I think in the lifetime of my parents, to ever have a period where schools across the province, no, across the country, were closed. where all students were forced to stay home, where families were forced to try to, provide an educational, comprehensive I was one of these parents, so trust me, I know exactly what it was like, how the challenge that was for parents and families, and for teachers and for school systems to try to support learning during a year where we were all at home worried about, our health and our family members and masking and distancing and the like. We are still, as a society, not just here in Manitoba, across Canada and across the world, really, are still trying to understand the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we know for sure that that had an impact on absenteeism here in the province and, again, around the world. So there are complicated factors, multifaceted factors, and different factors that drive absenteeism. So, like I said earlier, just like Truth and Reconciliation, you have to acknowledge the truth. Chronic and severe absenteeism is an issue here in Manitoba. Focusing on the data is not constructive. It doesn't serve Manitoba students. What does serve Manitoba students is Budget 2026, which for the third year in a row provides a $30 million school nutrition program, the single largest investment any government has made to address absenteeism in this province. And I will remind the member opposite that it was him and his government that said it was a bad idea. I'm so very happy to see that they have seen the error of their ways and have been on the record many times now as saying that the Universal School Nutrition Program is a good thing. I'm very glad to hear them say that. But that's not the only budget line item in Budget 2026 that we can look to. We can also look to a $3 million annual investment on the return of small class sizes. Small class sizes, having more one-on-one time with the trusted teachers, educational assistants, clinicians in the classroom also helps support students, helps them feel valued, helps them feel seen, and helps their learning. And we know that when kids feel supported in their learning, that they are more likely to attend and to be successful and to have good outcomes. Another budget line item in Budget 2026 that I'd love to talk about is a historic $10 million investment for free transit for youth. So I want to thank the many superintendents, teachers, trustees that came forward this year and have come forward really for years advocating for free transit for youth. But this year, in particular in the city of Winnipeg, there was a particular pressure in that Winnipeg Transit, for the first time in many years, reinitiated fare enforcement on city transit buses. We know for that many students in the city of Winnipeg, Winnipeg Transit is how they transport themselves to high school, and we know that for some of them that's a barrier. So I want to thank again the Manitoba Association of School Superintendents in particular, who were the very first group. I heard from many advocates, many groups, but it was the Manitoba Association of School Superintendents who first raised this formally in a meeting as a significant barrier facing students in school divisions across Winnipeg. But we know this isn't only a barrier for students in Winnipeg, we know it's a barrier for students in Brandon, Selkirk, and even Thompson. One of the things that we did in Budget 2025 was support the purchase of a school bus for the Mystery Lake School Division. Many more investments to talk about.
The member for Lac Du Bonny.
So it's interesting when you sit here, Manitobans, and you listen to the education minister go on and talk about, it's unfortunate, but she says how the data doesn't matter and how I'm fixated on the data. Well, that's how you make decisions. You ask questions to education partners all across this great province of ours. You get the data and then you learn from the data. And so what the minister has failed to do, and I watch this on a day-to-day basis, not only in the chamber but around this great building of ours where, and she put it on the record as well today on that her caucus does have many teachers, as we have many teachers and trustees on our side as well. But it almost sounds as if she's either auditioning for the finance minister's position because she's talking about the overall budget, or she's looking at the justice minister's position. And I know that they're long overdue for a cabinet shuffle. And I know that many of the teachers on the NDP side are chomping on the bit, waiting for that day for when the Premier will actually do the right thing and do a bit of a shuffle and get someone possibly into the chair of education or possibly in one of the other portfolios that seem to be lacking on any type of forward progress or action going forward. So the minister had asked me a question, and I guess she's also practicing for shortly after the next election, where she'll be able to ask questions from this side, as many as she possibly wants, and whether it's me in the education department or one of my other esteemed colleagues, I'm sure that we will be more than open, transparent, and accountable, not only to her as a potential critic, but also to Manitobans on any kind of data that the department may have. And so in January of 2023, so we did come out with a program after consulting with Manitobans, and I know that the department is very much aware of this program and where it stemmed from, and basically it was coming from the report on Safe and Caring Schools, a policy directive and action plan to enhance students' presence and engagement attending schools, getting more students to attend schools. So it follows the Manitoba's K-12 Education Action Plan's requirement for a provincial policy on attendance. This is after many consultations with many education partners from all across this great province of ours that came together, and the member had mentioned some individuals that were part of those groups earlier on in her statements, not really answers to the questions, but her statements. And so I would like to know if she would like to put it on the record one more time that the data doesn't matter and that I'm fixated on the data as to why certain decisions are being made, because March 12th, 2026, 15,000 plus students regularly skip school across Manitoba, and that is shameful. And I think that the minister should be transparent, be accountable, release the data as far as how bad is it really, or is it 15,000 plus? Is it 25,000 plus? Is it 10,000? Release the data. It's been asked on more than one occasion, very respectfully. This is not the department's issue. This lies on the minister's desk. So will the Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning release the data today?
I would like to remind the committee that our Rule 53, as well as Jantz and LeBlanc on page 891 of the House of Commons Procedure and Practice, caution against repetitive questions. So we will allow this question this last time, but after would like the official opposition critic to please change up the line of questioning. Thank you. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. And the member opposite is putting, he's misquoting me on the record. I've never said that data doesn't matter. Data absolutely matters. Data absolutely informs our decision making. But he really reveals himself. Like, again, this is the PC's plan. This is the PC's plan, okay, to collect data and not to do anything about it. Like, this is, he talks about the numbers, and this is his record we're talking about, right? He's talking about these numbers, and again, I've answered, I don't know how many questions, I've lost track. We've answered many questions under the same line of questioning. We can all agree that severe absenteeism is an issue in this province. We all agree that severe and chronic absenteeism is an issue in this province. This government has nothing to hide, and in fact, we name it, we acknowledge it, and we are working diligently with our education partners to address it. The member brings up his policy, his plan, his program, and what it actually was, Manitoba, was a series of billboards. And those billboards, what they said, their plan to address chronic absenteeism, which we have discussed here on the record today, is driven by many diverse, complex issues. Their plan was to put up billboards across our city that said, "School, keep going." That was their plan, okay? And this really exemplifies the PC plan on everything, right? It's this pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just go to school, because that's why kids aren't going to school. If only the kids that weren't going to school could just drive by a billboard and see a big, expensive billboard paid for by tax dollars that's reminded them that they should go to school, geez. And what does the data show? That campaign did absolutely nothing. This was their plan on school. Keep going. This was their plan on people experiencing homelessness. Get a house. This was their plan on people experiencing addiction. Stop doing drugs. This is their plan on healthcare. Close the emergency rooms. No data. This just, again, their school plan, their entire, like, this exemplifies their billboards, School Keep Going, exemplifies their entire government platform on education, on healthcare, on addressing homelessness, on housing. Our plan, we have to, again, acknowledge and talk about what's driving absenteeism in this province. Kids don't go to school, and the member talks about that he did extensive consultations with the sector. You know what the sector's been saying for decades, for generations? In fact, my mom, who's a retired school teacher, sat me down the other night and told me the story, and I talked about this. I wish she had written this down for me. I wish I had all the details, because I don't have the names with me today. My mom talked to me about the very first school food program that she was aware of at John M. King in 1972. Okay, so the sector has known for decades, for generations, that kids aren't coming to school. One of the reasons is because they're hungry. They don't have a lunch. So we listened to the sector, $30 million annual investment, school nutrition program. Is it a silver bullet? Absolutely not. Is it the greatest investment any government has made in Manitoba to address and improve attendance in Manitoba? Absolutely. And I'll say it again. I'll say it again and again. And the data and the outcomes here in Manitoba are going to show the results of that. $3 million small class size initiative, $10 million free transit so that kids can get to school. I just told a story about Mass. Our education partners came down at the beginning of the year, talked to us about all sorts of issues. One of the issues they talked about was fare enforcement. Kids aren't coming to school because they can't pay their bus fare. We're a listening government. We're going to step up. This is what our government's doing. We are addressing the root causes. Poverty, affordability, lack of housing. This is what Minister Smith is working on, in concert with the Minister of Families, in concert with the Minister of Justice, in concert with our Premier.
Order. Just a general caution to make sure that we're using ministerial titles and constituency names, but not people's actual names. Yeah. The honourable member, or the honourable minister.
I apologize. Thank you very much for that guidance, Honourable Chair. It was inadvertent. But again, this is just the member's line of questioning just really shows how sort of out of touch they are when he brings up his School Keep Going program. They can put up billboards. They can patronize Manitobans. That was their style. Manitobans elected a government that wants to talk about the issues that are driving absenteeism, that wants to step up and address them. And we're going to keep doing that. We're going to do it across government, and we're going to do it for Manitobans.
The member for Lac Du Bonny.
So I've been told that I can no longer, Manitobans, ask this line of questioning, even though the minister can continue to go down this path of no information, no answers. You know, she says on one hand, the data shows, on the other hand, doesn't want to release the data. We'll check Hansard as to what she exactly said in regards to that the data doesn't matter and that I shouldn't be fixating on the data. But again, that's how you make decisions. I know that this is a reactive government. The Canoe government is a reactive government. Once again, the minister can't help herself. She's now possibly, you can almost tell that she's auditioning for another portfolio because she's mentioned many other portfolios, you know, justice, families, now housing. I'm sure soon we'll be into the sport, culture, and heritage side, or maybe even advanced education side. But she mentioned that the consistent 30, the food and nutrition program, again, so she mentioned that it's been that consistent number for the last 3 years. I'm just wondering if she is aware that the food inflation rate was as high as 6.8%. And so in fact, if the food inflation rate is 6.8%, the money that she rolled out, I'm sure she'll be pointing to the finance minister as far as it's his problem, but the money that she rolled out was in fact a cut to school divisions this year because of the food inflation. And we know that the food and nutrition program isn't necessarily going to food for students. It's going to many other things, which will be another line of questioning, because I think that I can ask that line of questioning if the Honourable Chair will allow me to, because it doesn't necessarily stick to absenteeism or improving attendance rates. It's sort of part of the overall picture. So I'd like to ask the minister why she cut the food and nutrition program for this year to school divisions.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. The member knows it brings me a whole bunch of joy to talk about our Universal School Nutrition Program, for the benefits that it's going to bring, for the transformation that it's going to initiate across our province, and also because it was initiated by a great friend and leader in this province, Nella Altamar. So it always brings me great pleasure to talk about him and the great investments that we've made. Again, these are generational investments. $30 million a year. It's one of the first things that we did in our very first budget. It was really the flagship of our first budget, was the $30 million Universal Nutrition Program. So that's about $30 million more dollars than the member opposite ever invested in a Universal Nutrition Program, one that he called a bad idea. Again, I'm very glad to hear the member has educated himself about the value of the Universal School Nutrition Program implemented by Nella Altamar, and that he's changed his mind and has been on the record several times talking about what a fantastic program it is, and I agree with him in that regard. It is a fantastic program. So fantastic, in fact, that it inspired the federal government to bring forward a national school food program. And I think about that often. I think about how proud I am to have served with Nello Altamar and the work that he did changing the face of this province and our education system. But really the work that inspired a national school food program. So we thank very much our federal partners for their investments here into Manitoba and to schools across Canada. I also want to acknowledge the great work that happens in the department in designing, developing, initiating, rolling out, but now working on further refining our Universal School Nutrition Program. So there's many fantastic people that work in the department that have worked on the rollout of this. I'll acknowledge our former deputy, Brian O'Leary, who was instrumental with Nello in bringing this in. I'll also mention Kate McNeil, who works in the department, who's done a lot of great work on rolling out the Universal School Nutrition Program. But I also want to highlight our Assistant Deputy Minister of Indigenous Excellence, Jackie Connell, who does such great work working with government, working with the department, working with the sector, working with community, again, to roll out this program in an incredible, meaningful way. But like I said, also to learn as we roll out this program, and to further refine it, to make sure that these significant investments are achieving the greatest benefit and the greatest outcome that we can. So I thank all of the people that have been involved in the rollout of this program, including, perhaps most importantly, the school administrators, the principals, the teachers, the educational assistants, and the students. There are so many students that volunteer and help roll out this program. So very, very happy to once again this year invest in a $30 million school nutrition program that again has been protected by law to continue on in perpetuity. This year we've made some adjustments such that, like I said, it's a new program. So in the first few years of our program, we weighted a greater amount of the dollars to go towards supporting schools in investing in the infrastructure that they might need to deliver a universal nutrition program. Every school was starting off at a different starting place. Some schools were already delivering universal nutrition programs, and so they had the kitchens, the staff, and some schools didn't. So in these first couple of years, we weighted a more significant amount of the dollars to allow schools to invest in that infrastructure, those initial investments they need to make in supplies, refrigeration, dishwashing, staff, all those kind of things. Now that those investments have been made, a greater proportion of those dollars can go directly into the purchasing of food. I'd also like to highlight, and I know it's very curious, the member talks about me auditioning for other positions. It's actually just, this is what happens when a government works together. We talk to each other, we work across government. It has nothing to do with an audition. I love working with my colleagues, but thanks to the Minister of Municipal and Northern Relations and the U.S. alcohol sales at MBLL. We've also invested this year $3 million with the Child Nutrition Council of Manitoba. to further refine our nutrition program in schools. So happy to talk more.
The member for Lac Du Bonny.
Okay. Thanks for the minister, I guess, going around and around and around and not really getting to the answers again. It's unfortunate, but this is the way that estimates are going to go for quite some time. And that's okay, because I have many questions, and even though we will not get the answers from this education and early childhood learning minister, maybe eventually the premier will see fit to actually make a cabinet shuffle. So a couple things. So the minister decides to put incorrect information on the record in regards to myself and various different things that I've said in the past. And so to correct the record, what I would like to say to the minister is that under quite a few years under the former Gary Dewar, Greg Selinger, dark days of debt, decay, and decline in the province of Manitoba, they never once increased the funding to the Child Nutrition Council of Manitoba. And so it was our government that, and again, this is a bit of a history lesson for the minister, because I know that, even though she says that the data and various different things bring forward some of the decisions that her and her government have made, even though she refuses to provide that data. We had actually more than doubled the funding to the Child Nutrition Council of Manitoba, and then the Universal Nutrition Program federally, as I've put on the record before, was discussed in the summer of 2022 to bring forward that. And again, feeding kids is an awesome thing, and we should be doing that. And what the minister fails to know or fails to put on the record is the fact that when kids are leaving home in the morning and going to school, there is children that are not having breakfast or not necessarily taking lunch with them, all across the socioeconomic spectrum. So you've got kids who are less fortunate, financially at home. You've got those that are very well off, and they also are not necessarily getting the breakfast or the lunches provided to them. So for years and years, various different community groups, whether it's churches or local businesses, especially in rural Manitoba, have got together and had food programs. So this is nothing new, but I do know that, I appreciate the minister giving some credit to the federal government, considering in this year's budget, the federal government has given $7.8 billion in transfers to the Canoe government. So you would think that this minister would see fit to, since the food inflation rate was 6.8%, to give a 6.8% top up of the food and nutrition program. But she doesn't want to talk about that, and she doesn't want to talk about the chronic absentee or students just not attending school. So I guess my question to the minister, again, is she going to release any of that data that we've asked for earlier? And can she explain why some school divisions are having to do double-digit property tax increases this year yet again, and a lot of them for now 3 years running.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I wish we had had some more time to talk about the Universal Nutrition Program and all of the other ways that we're saving Manitobans money and all the other ways that our government is addressing food inflation. The question was about food, the previous question was about food inflation, and man, do I have a lot to say. You know, our Minister of Public Service Delivery is doing such incredible work on addressing food inflation across Manitoba to further support the work that we're doing in schools with the Universal Nutrition Program. The incredible work that they're doing on addressing restrictive covenants. Again, this was something that the previous government could have done, and they didn't. If they want to talk about food inflation.
Some members are just joining us, but we were having a nice, calm time in estimates. So this is just a general caution to some of the folks that just arrived and are having interjections and trying to get words off the record, interrupting other folks. If you'd like to be addressed, please ask your critic to cede the floor to you. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you for your guidance, Honourable Chairperson. Yeah, the work that our Minister of Public Service Delivery is doing on addressing restrictive governments, which is restrictive covenants, pardon me, the work that the Minister of Public Service Delivery is doing to address restrictive covenants in this province is really revolutionary, and something that, you know, experts on food inflation from across the country are talking about. The members opposite should try reading a newspaper sometime or listening to the radio, because if you do one of those things and you listen to food inflation is a problem across Canada, around the world, really, thanks to Trump, and we know the members opposite like to thank Trump. But food inflation is a problem around the world, and when I listen to experts talk about this issue, do you know what those experts are talking about? They're talking about they're talking about the Minister of Public Service Delivery in Manitoba and the great work that he's doing in restrictive covenants. Jurisdictions across Canada are looking at the work of the Minister of Public Service Delivery, the work that he's doing to address predatory online pricing. People from across the country are looking to the Minister of Public Service Delivery from here in Manitoba, and they are so impressed by the work that this government is doing, work that the previous government could have done, never did. This government's also freezing the PST on groceries. That is, if the members opposite can get out of Manitobans' way. They want to talk about food inflation. They want to talk about taxes What they need to do is help us eliminate the PST on groceries. Now, when it comes to school funding, the member wants to talk about raising taxes. And again, Manitobans ought to listen, because this is their narrative when it comes to schools. They act as if there's no connection between the defunding of schools that they did for 7.5 years during their time in government, the defunding of schools, the defunding of families. They don't see a line between that and outcomes and what's happening with our students. They don't see the line between that, between graduation rates and absenteeism. They don't see the line, they don't recognize the effects of their funding cuts and what that has on families, what that has on absenteeism, what that has on grade 12 graduation rates, what the impact that has on our whole province and our whole economy. So after years of a government that cut school funding, that eliminated the ability of school trustees to raise their own funds in the face of a government that was attacking their budgets, cutting their budgets, schools were starved for years. And so now they have a government that supports local choice, that supports local autonomy, and there's years of catch-up that we are playing after the PC government defunded our education system. Years of catch-up that we are having to recover from, and we will recover, and we're doing it in partnership with our school division partners, with trustees, with superintendents, with teachers in the classroom. But it's going to take time to repair years of damage, years of cuts. There are real consequences to the funding cuts of the member opposite from when he was minister. This is an article from the Free Press from March 12th of 2021. School resource officers, a milk subsidy, and non-salary expenses at schools are being cut from the 2021-2022 Winnipeg School Division budget, thanks to the cuts. So there are real consequences to these cuts. So in order to make sure that schools are safe, we have to invest in our schools. To make sure that kids have milk to drink, we need to invest in our schools. To make sure that that students have the trusted teachers and educational assistants and clinicians in the classroom to support their learning, we need to invest in education. Manitobans elected us to invest in education and to end the cuts and the chaos under the member opposite.
The member for Lac Du Bonny.
Thank you, and I just have a couple quick questions here for the minister, because once again she decides to go ahead and put incorrect information on the record. So I'm asking for some clarification. So she said that she and her Canoe government are freezing the PST on groceries. Can she elaborate on that, and also can she name some foods which will have the PST frozen on them?
We'd ask the member for Lac Du Bonny to re-ask his question in a format that pertains to the topic at hand, which is the estimates for the Department of Education and Early Childhood Learning. The member for Lac Du Bonny.
You don't need to answer.
So again, it's the education minister's words, so I asked for some clarification on what the education minister meant. Can she elaborate on the fact that she said that they are freezing the PST on groceries, and can she name some of the foods that are going to have the PST frozen on them?
Again, I'd like to ask the member to please reframe his question to make it specific to the Department of Estimates for Education and Early Childhood Learning. The member for Lac Du Bonny.
Sure, I appreciate the honourable chairperson getting involved in the debate, so I can definitely elaborate and
order.
change my question.
like to remind all members that you're not to draw the chair into debate. If you have something you'd like to discuss later, you could discuss it with the clerks who provide direction and guidance to the chairperson. The member for Lac Du Bonny.
I appreciate that guidance, and I think I will take the honorable chairperson's advice and maybe do that, because it seems that the education minister put some words on the record. I was asking for for her to elaborate, and so the education minister said that her and the Canoe government are freezing the PST on groceries. Basically, I'd like her to name some of the foods which will have the PST frozen on them, especially considering we also spoke about the food and nutrition program in schools, which would definitely add or decrease the costs to those very same schools.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak more about the incredible initiative brought forward in Budget 2026 by the best finance minister in the country on our plan to save Manitobans money. Again, anyways, happy to answer this question, happy to help share the good news with Manitobans. So I've shared in this committee before with Manitobans that I'm a mom, and so I'm at the grocery store all the time. And I personally, me and my neighbors can't wait to stop paying PST on lots of those, like everything in the grocery store, but lots of those convenience items that busy working parents can pick up. So this is something I do almost every week when I'm driving home on a Friday and I don't have time, I don't have energy to cook dinner for my kids. I can stop at the grocery store. I can pick up a prepared rotisserie chicken. I don't got to cook it. I can just cut it up. I can stop and get a prepared Caesar salad. I've got some great healthy protein. I've got great nutritious veg for my kids. And now, even better, thanks to the Canoe government, we are going to have, thanks to the Canoe government, it's going to be even cheaper for Manitobans. Another one of my favorites, this is one of my kids' favorites for their lunches. They love pretzels. Pretzels, no more PST on pretzels. That is, if the members opposite will get on board and support Budget 2026, a budget that is full of ways to save Manitobans money, not just at the grocery store, at Winnipeg with transit, Winnipeg Transit, Brandon Transit. If you are a youth in Manitoba and you need to get to school, you're not going to pay for transit, thanks to the Canoe government. If you want to buy a liter of milk, guess what? PST, no more PST on your milk. So that's another thing to educate the member from Lac Du Bonny, since he wants to know. So my kids love pretzels in their lunch. Those are going to be PST free. Another one of the things that my kids love at the grocery store, it makes it so much more convenient for me as a working mom, those prepared pizzas. You know, a little step up from like the frozen pizza that you might get in the frozen aisle. This is like the fresh prepared pizza that they make for you there with like the fresh cheese on it. Maybe a little bit more expensive than the frozen one, but makes me feel a little bit less guilty feeding that to my kids. Guess what? No more PST on those prepared items. So this is a really great initiative. I know that Manitobans are so excited about it. Manitobans, I know, are also very concerned because they know that the PCs are playing political games, trying to hold up our budget implementation bill. They want to stand up here and talk about food inflation. They want to come in here and talk about inflation. But Manitobans, they are actively delaying our budget implementation bill that is going to save you PST on all of those items that I just talked about.
Just kindly ask all members to make sure that we're having all questions and responses posed and tied back into the department at hand. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much for that guidance, Honourable Chair. Again, so Budget 2026 is full of ways to save. The member from Lac Du Bonny wanted me to elaborate and share the good news with Manitobans about specifically what kind of foods they're going to be saving money on at the grocery store on July 1st. Again, that is if the members opposite support our budget implementation bill, which is full of all sorts of other great investments that we're making in education. So again, we know that affordability is top of mind for Manitobans. That's why we brought in the Homeowners Affordability Tax Credit, which we designed specifically in consultation with Manitobans. And the Homeowners Affordability Tax Credit is designed to help those Manitobans that need it most. So it was under the previous under the previous government, when the member from Lac Du Bonny was the minister. Do you know what their tax credit did? Their tax credit sent $1 million out of our province to a numbered company in Ontario. Manitobans don't believe in that. That's why Manitobans elected a new government. The previous government sent property tax rebates to the premier. $4,000 property tax rebate to Brian Pallister. Manitobans don't believe in that. That's why Manitobans sent them to the curb and elected a good government.
I've allowed a lot of leeway. I was talking in generalities before. There are only 2 members of this estimates department that continue to interject when it is not your turn. Each person will have the opportunity to ask a question, and the minister will have the opportunity to respond when it is not your turn. There are to be no more interjections. If you have conversations that need to occur, you're welcome to exit the room and come back when you're prepared. Before recognizing the next speaker, I'd just like to remind all members with questions and responses to make sure that we're always tying it back into the estimates at hand. The member for Lac Du Bonny.
So Manitobans, you've heard it here yet again. So the Education and Early Childhood Learning Minister goes off on a bit of a tangent, named so the pretzels and the milk again. Technically, the milk was the 1 liter containers. We heard loud and clear that the minister likes to go and buy freshly made pizzas for her family, which is great. I mean, that's her prerogative. I mean, I did hear, again, some interesting information. The last time committee sat on that according to the Education and Early Childhood Learning Minister, that all MLAs are going to be receiving a base salary bump of an additional $10,000. And I know that the members on the NDP side were shocked, because I think our side definitely was shocked, because of course we know what each one of us makes as a base salary, and especially when we talk about estimates and the budget process, those are dollars. Those are not the education minister's dollars. Those are Manitoba taxpayers' dollars. So the minister did not elaborate on what she meant, that they were freezing the PST on groceries. But at this time, Honourable Chairperson, I'm ceding the floor to the MLA for Fort Garry till 5 o'clock today. Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. And I'm grateful to this committee for the opportunity to talk about our budget and the supplementary estimates before the committee today. It doesn't surprise me that the member from Lac Du Bonny is already out of questions. He's a deeply unserious member of this Legislative Assembly. For someone who has served in the role of Education Minister, I know that Manitobans and his constituents expect better. We did not hear the member from Lac Du Bonny ask any substantive, and for the record, we did not hear the member from Lac Du Bonny ask any substantive questions on the record today about education. He did not ask about our plans to address absenteeism. He did not ask about our plans to improve literacy. He did not ask about our plans to make schools safer places. He did not ask about, during Treaty Week, he did not ask about Indigenous education. He talked instead at length about himself. He talked at length about things that he claims that his government did in 2022 and beyond. None of those I can find in the supplementary estimate, so I'm not really sure what the member from Lac du Bonny was doing with his time here today. It's quite unfortunate. I know that Manitobans expect better. I know that when I come into this room and into this building every day, I'm here to serve Manitobans and to talk about how to make things better for Manitobans. Specifically here today, we're here to talk about how to make our education system better, how to improve outcomes for kids, how to make jobs better for teachers. And really, you know, like I've said many times, you know, the key to a thriving economy is a thriving education system. So if the member cares about the economy and inflation, then we should be talking here about education and how to make education better. The member went on at length about a cabinet shuffle. He tried insulting our government, which he does many times, talking about how there's so many teachers in our caucus and that perhaps there should be a cabinet shuffle. And so to that end, I think I just want to make a comment acknowledging our caucus and our government and the great work that we're doing. I'm very proud. It's the honor of my lifetime to serve Manitobans, to serve teachers, to serve students in this role. But I would be the first person to acknowledge that any person in our caucus, educator or otherwise, could serve just as well in this role. So while the member opposite spends his time trying to insult and demean the many incredible educators that are in our caucus, I would just like to take this moment to lift them up and to thank them for the support that they offer to me in my role as education minister, to the support that they offer our entire government, because again, this work that we're doing, the member from Fort Garry talked about this last week in committee, that, you know, if we can really address what's driving, if we can start to solve chronic and severe absenteeism in this province, we're actually going to solve a heck of a lot of the problems that we have here in Manitoba. We're a great and a proud province. We're doing a lot of great work. We have a lot more work to do, though, and we all admit that. And so just finally, I'm happy to leave some time for the member to Fort Garry, but I just wanted to, again, lift up every member of our caucus, including the valuable teachers and educators that serve in our caucus, and bring all those years of knowledge and experience that they had of serving in classrooms, serving as trustees, serving as educational assistants. The depth of knowledge that they bring to our government, to our premier, to me as education minister is invaluable. And I very much look forward to the day where I can sit here as a committee member supporting the next Minister of Education, hopefully not too soon. I'd like to be here, and we've got a lot of great work to do. But I just wanted to note that, again, our caucus is full of incredible educators. I'm proud to work beside them. I'm proud to work with them. And for the benefit of Manitobans, they should know that in our caucus, this is just a fun fact that I like to put on the record, just to help Manitobans understand just the depth of experience we have in our caucus when it comes to education. More than 189 years of working in the classroom. If you took all the teachers and educators in our caucus together and added up all their years of service, 189 years of service. If Nello was still with us, that number would be well over 200 years. I thank the NDP caucus.
The member for Fort Garry.
Thank you. I've certainly been hearing from NDP party members that are very concerned about the right-wing drift of this government. In fact, media commentators have described the Canoe government as a right-wing populist government. I think that's very fair. The one exception, of course, is the nutrition program. It's the flagship progressive program of this government. And I am absolutely in agreement with this minister that it is inspiring, a fantastic program, and it's something that needs to be expanded and cherished. And I'm also glad to hear this minister committed to investing in education. I think we probably all agree that needs to happen. So then that sort of brings me to the question here. In 2024, when this program was introduced, the budget was $30 million. In 2025, the budget again was $30 million. In 2026, the budget once again was $30 million. So we know that Manitoba leads Canada with inflation, and both consumer price index, but also food inflation. We're hearing numbers at 6.8% of food inflation, which is much higher than the Consumer Price Index. Yet the funding for this program hasn't kept up, which means each and every year we've had this program, it's been cut. The flagship progressive program for this government is being cut year over year, and less dollars can make it to the classroom. So I guess I'm curious why this minister allowed this cut, what was her thinking behind imposing this cut, and going forward, would she reverse her position and start funding this program properly and based on the cost of food inflation every year?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson, and thank you to the member for Fort Garry. I will agree that the Universal Nutrition Program is a flagship progressive policy. I would disagree that it would be our only flagship progressive policy. I think Budget 2026, well, I guess first of all, I would just, again, like to thank him for that acknowledgement. I think, again, it's something that I think all Manitobans should be very, very proud of, our Universal Nutrition Program here in Manitoba, and the partnership that we have with the federal government in supplementing that program. But I would argue that, you know, our government has been, we've had many, many policies that are progressive and that are designed to, designed progressively, designed with Manitobans in mind, designed to serve Manitobans that need it the most. And that's what we're doing. That's what the Universal Nutrition Program represents. That's what our announcement in Budget 2026, the $10 million investment that we're making to provide free transit for youth, very progressive, very widely and wildly received in community, that announcement. Also in Budget 2026, further advancements in childcare, both providing greater access to childcare, but also in Budget 2026, we've announced that we're making childcare free for the families that need it the most, a very progressive policy. Another great progressive policy from the New Democratic government that serves to address poverty will also certainly improve outcomes and economic prospects here in our province is the announcement made today by the Minister of Advanced Education and Technology, the $2.5 million funding increase to our adult learning program here in the province, and the meaningful outcomes that's going to help support. I would argue that the $30 million Universal Nutrition Program was $30 million more than had ever been previously invested, was a significant investment. I spoke earlier about the great work happening in our department, led by our Assistant Deputy Minister of Indigenous Excellence, Jackie Connell, but worked on with her, through her team, it's very important, and I think this is what your question is getting at, is that we are constantly evaluating our Universal Nutrition Program to make sure that it's having all the benefits that it's intended to. I can appreciate the member's line of questioning and the impacts of Consumer Price Index and food inflation, but again, I would argue that when this program was introduced, it was a $30 million lift. So that's a significant increased investment, and our department is working diligently, very closely, in close partnership with schools, like with school divisions, but even right down to the school level. We're working with schools to make sure that we are right-sizing the amount of our school funding, making sure that it is, and again, it's designed in the similar way that our homeowners affordability tax credit was designed. it is a universal program in that it's open to all students that might need it, but it's not necessarily, it's designed to deliver the most help to the schools and the school communities that need it the most. So that requires constant evaluation, reevaluation, really hands-on work with school divisions, and like I said, right down to the school level, to make sure that we are providing the right amount of funding to support the universal nutrition program. So to further help that work, just this year, we launched in partnership with Prairie Research Associates, I believe, we've launched a survey that's going out to families and to schools to continue on our process of collecting feedback from the partners that we have that are delivering this program to make sure that we are right sizing it. And I mean, the member is absolutely correct in that, and I mentioned this before in a previous question, not only have we initiated the Universal Nutrition Program, but we have legislated it because our government had significant concerns based on some of the comments made by members of the PC party about how they did not see the value of this Universal School Nutrition Program. They are on the record of saying it was a bad idea. So we know the transformational impact that the school nutrition program is having and will continue to have. So we have legislated that. But he is right, and we are more than happy to continue looking at that number to make sure that the necessary investments are made to feed school children. We are not hearing that pressure back from school divisions yet. We're helping them in funding in all sorts of different ways, but we'll continue to do that work.
The member for Fort Garry.
Thank you. There are approximately 61 public schools that after 2 years of this program do not have any type of nutrition program in place. There's 119 schools that they only have a snack program, which basically it's you report to the office and you get a granola bar or an apple. That's 26% of Manitoba schools either have no nutrition program at all or just provide a granola bar to students and do not offer any significant breakfast or lunch program. The Interlake School Division doesn't even offer breakfast or lunch at any of their schools. In fact, 38% of their students receive no food at all at their schools. So if you're a Manitoba student and you go to the wrong school or you're in the wrong division, you have no access to any meaningful nutrition program at all. And what these stats mean is that, in my view, we don't have a universal nutrition program when there's 26% of students that don't have a significant meal program available to them. So I'm curious what enforcement mechanisms are in place, and will there be 100% schools with a breakfast and lunch program available to them, or are we going to see, again, this sort of random availability of services where, depending what school you go to, you may get something, you may not. It may be significant as a full meal, or it may be a granola bar. And we know that poverty is everywhere, in every single school, in every single school division. And so I'm wondering what this minister's plans are, and does universal mean universal? Because right now it doesn't.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much for the question. And again, I'm so pleased to be able to talk about the Universal Nutrition Program and always making it better. So I would disagree with the assertion put forward from the member from Fort Garry that the Universal Nutrition Program is doled out randomly. It's certainly not random. It may appear that way. But as I said in my previous answer, this is a universal nutrition program in that every child in every school in Manitoba that wants access to free food will have access to free food. It is not a universal hot breakfast and hot lunch program. In some schools, that's exactly what it is. And like I said in my previous answer, we designed the Universal Nutrition Program in the same way we've designed the Homeowners Affordability Tax Credit, recognizing that not all Manitobans come from the same starting block. Not all Manitobans have the same amount of privilege, have the same amount of luck, have the same amount of opportunity. So everyone needs a different amount of support. We designed it that way. Not every school needs a full, hot lunch and hot breakfast program. If schools need that, that's what they will get. And again, I want to just lift up the work of our Assistant Deputy Minister Jackie Connell and her team, the work that they do every single year in going in, working very intentionally with our school division partners, with school principals, with the people that deliver this program to make sure that we are constantly right-sizing it. Last year, when I first came into this portfolio, I worked immediately with the member for Notre Dame. The member for Notre Dame. The member for Notre Dame approached me and talked about a particular school in a particular school division that she didn't feel was receiving the adequate amount of support. We went in, we evaluated, we changed that amount of support in partnership with the school division. This is how we've designed it, and I'm very proud that we've designed it that way. Not, you know, different Manitobans need a different amount of support. That's how we designed this program. It was designed that way very intentionally. To address, so again, so the member is correct that if you walk into a school in Manitoba, they may not every school in Manitoba will have a full hot breakfast, a full hot lunch program, but many of them do. Some schools, if the need is not there, one of the schools that one of my children attends, that's exactly what they have, is granola bars and apples in the office, and that suits the needs of that school community just fine. And if it doesn't, our department, me myself as minister, will be there to hear their concerns, and we will constantly be right-sizing this program. That's what we do every single year. This is not a static program. We work with school divisions to allot the amount of funding they receive. They work with their schools to allot the funding within the schools. And where some schools are getting more money and resources than they need, we will address that. If some schools require more resources, we will address that. And by the way, the need is great. You know, there are schools across Manitoba who not only have a hot lunch and a hot breakfast program, but they also, thanks to our partnership and our investments that we've made with Harvest Manitoba, that we have before and after school a Meals to Go program. And I want to shout out Vince Barletta and his team at Harvest Manitoba for the incredible work that they do in community. So the need extends beyond the school day, and our government recognizes that, the federal government of Canada recognizes that, and Harvest Manitoba recognizes that. And so we work with them very diligently to make sure that, again, every child in Manitoba that needs access to food has access to that food. I do want to address
The hour being 5 p.m., committee rise.